Well, hello and welcome everybody to the Lights Out F1 podcast. This week it's the Formula One Grand Prix. My name is Josh from Demo1Garage.com and Aussie from FNL1 Esports. How's everything going? How was your Monaco Grand Prix weekend?
Mate, it's a cold Tuesday night here in Sydney, but I'm still pumped from the weekend. I thought it was possibly the best race of the year so far.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I reckon it was one of the best races we've had after so many fizzes, but we didn't get a lot of overtaking on track, but that didn't really seem to matter. I mean, it was Monaco.
Well, you don't watch the Monaco race and expect passes left, right and centre, do you?
No, you don't. I think we've established that, but everyone seems to complain year after year. I'm going to be very interested to read what some of the media puts out on their other podcasts that are out there, because I always seem to think that every year it's, should we replace Monaco? You know, it was dull, but I think they were wrong if they put that.
Well, the same. I always see the usual things coming up in social media, you know, like what do we need to do to make Monaco better if we have to keep it on the calendar? How do we widen it? How do we make passing points? But just leave it. That's the beauty of Monaco to me. I said today, I love the stupidity of it. I love the craziness of it. I love that the cars have outgrown the circuit. I love the balls required to get the cars around there. You know, I love the concentration that's required. I just love everything about Monaco.
Yeah, and if you haven't already listened, guys, we did a special Monaco podcast last week, which was off rotation, but yeah, we pretty much went over why we love Monaco, and it proved that we were right, basically, at the end of the day.
Yes, we were.
So, go and have a listen, and as always, share, like, subscribe to the podcast. If you're on iTunes, if you enjoyed us, 5 stars, isn't it? Keep us on top.
Give us a 5-star rating. Share us around.
Yeah, we should be on. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Apple. Are we on Google yet?
Stitcher.
I know there's been some issues.
We're not on Google yet. We're on Stitcher. We're on Overcast.
FM.com or whatever it is. I've seen it there. We're on everything, basically. You'll find us. Lights Out F1. Have a look. Share it with your mates that like F1. And, have a good listen. But Monaco, we're up to episode 8 now, so we've got to do our 5 lights on, 5 lights out segment. And I think we're going to start with Ferrari, really. They were a big talking point all weekend.
Well, Ferrari, it's becoming our weekly segment, Ferrari, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, they should have their own headline in the podcast.
They are just getting more and more embarrassing as each race goes. It's just, how much of a bigger hole can they dig themselves?
I don't know. I've had people tell me that, like, they think it's bad for the sport even, that Ferrari are just so inept at the moment.
Haven't we heard all that talk before? And, you know, how will the sport survive without Ferrari and all that blah, blah, blah. But just from a competitive point of view, yes, the sport does need Ferrari to be up there and giving it to Mercedes just as much as it needs Red Bull up there as well.
Yeah, well, Ferrari's got a massive following, especially with the Tifosi. They're so dedicated. I know some of them were starting with it in Melbourne. You can go around and I think they're on Twitter or something. But there's always a massive red following every weekend. And being so close to Italy, there would have been a massive one there hoping for the best, but it just didn't come.
To a lot of people, Ferrari is Formula One. So,
yeah.
I mean, you can just imagine all the heartbreak around the world, not to mention just through Italy.
No, it would be hard. But it all started with,
Q1.
Yeah, Q1. I mean, they were all right in practice, but they were obviously behind Mercedes pretty much all weekend. That was obvious.
Leclerc was fastest in Q3, which kind of raised the spirits a bit and started a bit of chatter about, you know, they might just be able to snatch pole, you know, if things go their way. But what did they do, Josh?
What didn't they do? I think that's a better question. Leclerc. Now, I rewatched his onboard for that qualifying session, and he first went out and he did 6 laps back to back. Is Is that a normal thing to do that many? He did like 3 out laps and 6 at once.
Well, they were all doing it because one quick lap, then they got to do another lap to recharge, and then have another flying lap. So
it's usually
because it's Monaco and the track is just not used for racing throughout the year. It's very green, so every lap it's just it's evolving. Yeah, it's just rubber getting laid down, and the tyres, as we know, they're so hard to get into the operating temperature these days. So I think, I can't remember last year if they were doing 6 or 7 laps to get it going. I don't think so. I think definitely the new tyre window had something to do with it there.
Yeah, it was just weird because it's obviously you don't see it every week, but he did 6 laps, 3 on the recharge, 3 on the fast. You come back in, and actually the first thing he said on the radio was, "Are we going to go out again?" And my Ferrari just seemed to be happy with it, but there was still plenty of time to go out. Like, Vettel went back out. Why did they think Leclerc was safe? And that's one of the biggest questions.
Every time we bring up our Ferrari segment, I tell you the same thing, Josh. This is they just don't seem to be capable of changing their mindset or strategy on the fly. It's almost like they went into Q1 thinking Leclerc's going to go out there, he's going to do one run, that's it. This is the time we've got for the cutoff, as long as he's ahead of that time, and they just stuck with that. But Blind Freddy could see how the track was evolving with, the Toro Rosso's getting ahead of him. It's like, you got to get him out there. Like, what were they trying to save tyres for?
Yeah, I don't know, because there's been talk saying, because he missed that weighbridge, it cost extra time or whatever.
No.
But that's not true, because he had plenty of time after that was done.
You even saw on the footage with 3 minutes to go, like there was still quite a bit of time to go in Q1, and he was actually still questioning if he should go out or not. And then,
because he's about 5/10 off the lead time when he come in. And obviously, as everybody knows, even just newcomers, the track evolves. And by the end of Q1, it evolved by about 0.2, and that was enough for him to be gone. See you later. I just don't know why Ferrari forgot that happens.
It's just what keeps doing my head in. Because forget saving tyres. This is Monaco, the one track in the entire calendar. Track position. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that was proven, I think, later on. But, just Ferrari there's something wrong. Like I've said before, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. You said that they just can't seem to adjust on the fly. Leadership haven't changed anything really. So it's just boggles the mind. And I don't know if anyone's gotten to the bottom of the problem.
I don't understand why the strategy department, that's where we should be reading that there's been some major changes made. They need to do something, because that's where they keep falling behind, in the strategy department. You don't see Mercedes or Renault Red Bull making all these errors. These are very costly errors they're making.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I could argue that Mercedes made an error, but it paid off for them in the end. But I mean, that's a once in a blue moon thing for them. But yeah, and then he come out the end of that, and he was basically like, in the interviews, he's like, "I'm gonna have to crash to get to the front." Do you remember hearing him talk about that?
He said on the bus on the lap that they do to is it Nicole, her name, the one that does the interviews on the bus?
Yeah. Yep.
I think he said, it's pretty much do or die. He's either going to go for some risky moves, or he's just going to have to settle finishing 15th in the race.
Yeah.
This is Monaco.
And he was doing that. To his own detriment, I think it turned out. Like, it was spectacular to watch him chuck a move up on the Lowe's hairpin and try get into Mirabeau. There was some good moves, but he just let it get to him a little bit too much. Leclerc, I think, for the first time, showed his immaturity a lot.
100%. I was just about to say to you, I just feel like the immaturity of him really showed this weekend, because the inexperience, the immaturity. He was just way too eager. He knew he had to do something to get to the front, which he was making it happen. Like you said, that move,
mate. Just chill.
That move on Grosjean, I think, going into Razkas, that was a great move.
Yeah.
I mean, Grosjean on the onboard radios, he didn't like it. He said it was a dive bomb, but he made it. They didn't even touch, But then he should have just waited maybe one more lap, sized Hulk up a bit more, but it was his own undoing. And you know what? I don't necessarily blame him for that move on Hulk where he hit the wall and it kind of swung him around, and I think he hit Hulk on the left-hand side of the car, which damaged the rear there as well.
Yeah.
But I think what really stuffed him up was his entire lap that he had to do with the flat tyre, and he just stormed it around rather than taking it easy.
It wrecked his floor. Do you remember? Do you remember seeing it when he was just coming past the swimming pool where his tyre was just like had that big long thread?
Slap, slap, slap,
it was
slap,
just
slap.
smashing up against that floor, and you could see like this big hole where it was hitting it. And I was like, you've just wrecked your race. You absolutely ruined it.
Completely wrecked it. Like, I think if he had just had a bit of a calmer head and, just putted around, it is only a short track, Monaco, so he might have lost maybe, let's say even if he lost an extra minute, whatever. But with the car he had, it still might have been possible to sneak into a 10th or a 9th or an 8th, but he just had no chance with the way he slapped that tyre onto his car.
Yeah, I think he just got to him, and then you could see after the pit stop when he was back out, and he was just driving like I don't know how to describe it. He was just angry, absolutely angry, determined, I think you'd call it. But it didn't do him any help.
This was a weekend for Leclerc to forget. Unfortunately, it was his home Grand Prix as well, the Madagascar on the grid.
Yeah.
So maybe it just all got to him.
Yeah, Q1 wouldn't have helped him, the fact he was out of that, because he looked pissed after that. And then he got the puncture, and then he thought, for whatever reason, he needs to, fly back at race pace back to the pits. Wrecked his floor, but after that it was a little bit too late. And, bye-bye Leclerc. We'll see you next week.
And the one saving grace for Ferrari was they
Vettel.
Managed to jag second with Vettel, which basically he was really nowhere for the race. I mean, I don't recall... Yeah, I'm just thinking, I really don't even recall one moment where he fully attacked Verstappen or he really looked like he was going to pass him. He never did he?
No, I think because once they found out, I think that Verstappen had that penalty,
they just settled, yeah.
His whole plan was just stay within the 5 seconds and you guaranteed the podium, basically. So I think that's all he did. He didn't attack. Like, I just don't think they wanted to... risk not finishing the race since Leclerc wasn't in the race anymore, because he was their only chance for points.
Well, it's their best finish of the year so far.
Exactly, but it's proven track position again. That's what got him there in the end. So yeah, Leclerc.
I heard on the radio he was overheating as well. Was he? Did you hear that with Vettel? Like he was being told to sit back a little bit.
I know. I don't know about Vettel, but I know Verstappen and even Hamilton's brakes, they were overheating at points. So it doesn't surprise me that, he was sitting back, just biding his time, basically.
So the best thing, just to finish that up, I would say that Ferrari did this weekend was they broke the Mercedes 1-2 streak.
Yeah, I didn't know how long that'd go for, but at least it didn't keep continuing, because I think there would have been a big hiatus of fans if Mercedes just kept doing that. You never know.
So that's the first light out, our weekly or our bi-racely Ferrari wrap-up.
Yes, number 1. And number 2, Lewis, you reckon it was a whingy, whiny drive to victory?
Oh, you cannot tell me he wasn't whinging and whinging through that entire race.
Well, as you know, I had his onboard up listening, and I think it's interesting to see how, because I was watching his onboard in line with the TV broadcast, and it's interesting to see how the TV and how Crofty even can sort of influence the storyline that's going on, especially when you don't have that onboard that I was watching, if you know what I mean. Because he was seriously questioning early on after that safety car, why am I staying on the mediums? But yeah,
he was, but the way I see it, his victory was never in doubt unless he managed to actually somehow talk his pit crew into calling him in. I mean, yes, he was struggling with those tyres, especially that left front was really worn out. But history has proved to us time and time again, only just recently with Ricciardo, and even Hamilton himself in 2016 when Ricciardo, the pit stop got stuffed and he came out on the much fresher tyres and he was all over Hamilton's gearbox, but he just couldn't pass him because it's Monaco. So history proves track position. So there was absolutely it would have just been suicide for him to come in and change tyres. What would have been the point of that?
I agree, but I still think he had a point. I think Mercedes, they picked the wrong tyres, and I think the only reason they won was, one, you had track position, which obviously helps 99%, but I think Lewis, he just drove out of his skin. I don't know if people sort of understand how well he sort of had to pace himself, especially with Verstappen running right up his cockpit, up his exhaust pipes, pushing him faster than what Hamilton was, safely wanting to do, But he said at the end he was never going to come in. I know it sounded whingy on the broadcast, but yeah, I can imagine being a driver at the Monaco Grand Prix in the lead and you're on the wrong strategy, on the wrong tyre, for instance, you're sort of going to be questioning why the hell you've been given the wrong tyre. And because you don't want to see your race win disappear.
No, but it sounded like he was doing his best to try and get his pit crew to say, okay, Lewis, come in, let's change your tyres.
I have a feeling, I don't know what it is about him, but I just have a feeling he just wanted them to admit it over the radio, just like, yes, we've picked the wrong strategy. Or, I don't know what it is, but you could hear, like, when we were coming to the closing laps and he was getting up into back traffic, he was going, blue flags, because apparently the stewards weren't blue flagging properly. And I don't know if he's calling it out to tell the team, to tell the stewards ahead of time that this needs to be happening. But at one point, he screamed out, blue fucking flags, rah, 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 rah.
Yeah, I heard that as well, yep.
You could hear it in his voice, like he was desperate and he wanted this win. But I mean, to some people I think it sounded like whingy, but I think he had a point.
Well,
honestly,
this is how I would sum it up. Like, without a doubt, it was a great drive.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a miraculous victory, or he even said himself it was his best drive ever. I disagree. I think, and then also what made me laugh at the end when James came on the radio and he said, "Oh, well done, Lewis. No one else could have done that." And first thing that came, hang on, weren't you there? Did you not see Ricciardo win last year?
Yeah.
Don't tell me no one else could have done that.
I think that was just a bit of like sucking up to
exactly. But it was a great drive to get the car home, but for me, it wasn't like... I don't think it was one of the most memorable drives of Lewis that I'll remember.
Oh, no, not at all. But
to me, it kind of reminded me of the things what makes me dislike Lewis, with all that whinging and whining going on that I was hearing. Because, like you, I was also watching the onboards and hearing all the extra radio, and sometimes I was just having to flick over to another driver just so I could stop listening to him. Sorry. But the other thing I was going to say too is his left front tyre, or both his fronts were pretty much gone, but the left was totally gone, finished.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the trick suspension that Mercedes have somehow done in the rear.
That saved him, I agree.
I think that really showed itself too, because the way he was... those rear tyres, mate, they could have done 100 more laps. The way he was getting traction out of...
Yeah. I was about to say, like, if you looked at his rears, they didn't even look touched.
And that's what saved him, the traction he was able to get out of into the tunnel. So that's where he really needed to pull that little bit of gap on Verstappen, where he got to have one lunge at him. I think it was like lap 76 or something. But and traditionally, Mercedes rear tyres have been a big problem. So they've obviously really solved this issue that they've had over the last few years.
Yeah, it was weird, but yeah, definitely the traction coming out into the tunnel helped because he was able to get away and pull away from Verstappen. He was also using all of his energy through there too, so he had the tools available and the traction. But I just think I was just trying to get myself into the mindset of a race driver because I was watching. What was I watching? It was the world's fastest gamer that McLaren did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they when they invited all the esport, like the big names into their factory, and they were testing everybody out. I forget who it was, but it was in episode 2 or 3. One of the esport drivers, when he's won countless iRacing things and whatever, and they were trying to get him to come back and question, what could I have done better here? Where could I have learnt? Because they put a scenario to them where they had to do a race, but then I think 10 or 20 laps out from the end, they were going to be stuck in like 5th or 6th gear.
Oh.
And he still won. I think he still won the event, but they wanted him to come back and sort of get some knowledge and insight from the engineers and sort of learn from that. But he wasn't doing that because he was like, I've got nothing to ask, I've got nothing to ask. And they're like, no, but as a race driver, you always want to be better. You need to be practicing things because you knew ahead of time that you're going to be stuck in 5th or 6th gear. Why didn't you practice that? And Lewis, I think he was trying to understand why this was happening. And I just think that's what's sort of happening in his head. He's sort of, I think because he's been doing it for so long now, he wants the best strategy. He wants the best tyres. And I think he was just trying to understand what was going on and what was the plan. And I don't think they'll be doing it again because I think they would have gone back to the debrief, and I think Lewis would have told them they got it wrong. And I think they did get it wrong.
I think they know what Lewis thought.
Yeah. But, and Mercedes will learn from that. I don't know if Ferrari will learn from anything they've done. But
true.
Yeah, I just have a feeling that it's just part of his race DNA, so to speak, that he needs to know and he wants to understand what the thought process was going on to keep him on the mediums. And I don't think the team at the time, even if they were trying not to give away information over the radio, whatever it was, I just don't think they gave it to him. And that's why he was so forceful every second lap. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. But in the end, track position, won out, and he did get it there. So kudos to him.
Well, to give your theory credit, I mean, Toto even said himself, I mean, it was almost like he was like showing a little bit of embarrassment for Lewis, but at the same time justifying he's whinging over the radio and saying, well, it's good for a driver to release. Sometimes, in the car, they just need to release their anger, and it's a good way to do it verbally, and the engineers just, are there to absorb it. So he was kind of explaining it in that way, which does make sense. But the bit that I don't get is just he was constantly on it, and you're saying he wanted them to admit it, but okay, just get them to admit it afterwards, man, in the briefing room. Yeah. And the other thing I've seen all over social media is that there's this theory that the reason he was berating the way he was to put out this false sense of security for everyone else, like he was bluffing them. But I don't know what you think about that theory, but I can't see any benefit in that.
I think he was genuinely concerned he was not going to get those tyres to the end. I honestly do.
Because what does he have to benefit in bluffing and saying that his tyres are dead? Because all that would do is just fire up Verstappen more to attack him. Whereas if you went the other way and said, no, my tyres are fine, you'd kind of just say, oh, well, just if you're Verstappen, you just settle. Well, his tyres are fine. I can't pass him. What am I going to try for?
Or you might get Verstappen and Red Bull thinking, or even Ferrari, seeing the tyres blistering on the hards, and they're going, well, the mediums seem to be working fine. Why don't we go back to them, And then But yeah, I don't agree with that one. But yeah, I just have a feeling it's just something to do with the way Lewis sort of approaches a race. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting being able to see it as it happened, rather than seeing it after the fact, after I've already formed an opinion, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, again, even if we don't agree on it, I think it was a very interesting scenario to watch play out.
Well, it was actually one of the most interesting points, just to finish up there, is when you think about it, Mercedes traditionally aren't good at Monaco, and every time they win there, they're actually not the fastest car, because they clearly weren't the fastest car in the race with the tyres that Lewis had.
I think Verstappen would have smashed him if he was in front.
Same thing happened in 2016 when he beat Ricciardo, as I said earlier. Same thing happened when Rosberg won. He was just, putt-putting around to victory.
Yeah.
So they know track position wins you the race.
Yeah, well,
he was never coming in. It was never in doubt. Yeah, I
think they banked on it. So yeah, let us know what you think as well, guys. If you got any comments on it, you can post them in FNL1 Esports Facebook. We got a Lights Out F1 Facebook now, don't we?
I was just about to say that. Yeah, we've got a Lights Out F1 Facebook page, guys. Jump in there, like the page. You'll get notified when there's a new episode up. You can leave comments there. You can ask us questions. Get involved.
Yeah, and easy way to share it as well.
That's right.
So yeah, don't forget Lights Out F1 on Facebook too. We're everywhere.
Even Crofty's listening to us.
Yeah, we think so, because every point we put out in that Monaco thing, they were saying in the practice sessions.
We were having a good laugh, weren't we? He must have listened to us in his lunch break.
Bloody hell. If you are listening, Crofty, just let us know. We're okay with that. Just a little shout out on TV would be nice.
We'll get you on as a guest.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, so that's 2 lights out. Third light, the unsafe release with Max Verstappen. He's penalty as well, 5 seconds.
And you got 5 seconds for that. I mean, there's no one out there who could possibly say that wasn't an unsafe release, especially in that tight Monaco pit lane.
Oh, it was. Yep, I have to agree, it is unsafe.
They just fully let him out into Bottas, basically, not in his way. They let him out into Bottas.
Is there any credit in the argument that they just couldn't see it? Do you think?
Oh, well, I think definitely there's credit that Verstappen couldn't see him, but how could the pit crew not see him?
Yeah, I don't know, because I haven't really gone over the footage of it, but you sort of because it's so compact and there's so many mechanics around. If you just saw the shot, there's just bodies everywhere, and you're like, did he actually see Bottas come out? Because I know once when Verstappen sees the green light to go, he's going to go. That's his job. So you can't blame Verstappen for that. But yeah, I just wonder if there was someone was view was obstructed or something, or I don't know.
What did you think of the 5 second penalty he copped for that?
I thought it was fair.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's harsh to penalise the driver, but in a sense, racing is still a team sport. When you go back to it at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that help get the driver there. I know he's got to do the work on the track, but I don't know. Did you think it was unfair?
I think it was very lenient. I think it deserved, at the minimum, a 10-second penalty, especially considering later on when Giovinazzi spun Kubica around at Razkas, which formed that little bit of a pile-up because they couldn't get around him.
Yeah.
Bank-up, I should say, sorry. He copped a 10-second penalty for that, for a racing incident. He was actually racing, trying to, pass a car. Verstappen gets released into another car that is actually racing for position on the track in pit lane, and he only gets a 5-second penalty. So where's the consistency? I don't understand. And I said earlier with Ferrari, the best thing they did was break the Mercedes 1-2. But in actual fact, I think Red Bull are the ones who broke the Mercedes 1-2, because if Bottas had got away cleanly out of pit lane ahead of Max, I think we would have easily had another Mercedes 1-2. So Bottas
probably
really suffered with that because it broke his wheel, so he had to come back in and then change his tyre again, which that's when he went back onto the hards.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I mean, that's a good point. I didn't really consider Giovinazzi's penalty when you compare them. Did Giovinazzi lose out for that 10-second at all? Because he came 19th, so he was dead last.
I didn't look at it that far, to be honest. If he did, he might have went from 18th to 19th. But I'm just saying, just in the sense of handing out penalties, you've got to be a bit more consistent. And to me, that was a much worse incident, the unsafe release in pit lane, than what happened on track when a driver is trying to race on such a tight track as it is.
Yeah. I am surprised it wasn't a stop-go, to be honest. I thought that,
or at least a drive-through, or 10 seconds, just at least keep it the same is what I'm saying. I mean, I think Giovinazzi had a shocker weekend, but that's beside the point. I'm just speaking purely on a penalty basis here. I mean, then, I don't know if you heard, but Verstappen also got 2 penalty points on his license. Now, that I don't agree with. I mean, because, like you said, Verstappen just goes when the pit tells him to go. Yeah. It's not his fault.
I think the penalty points on his license is a bit harsh. Because, like I said, and you've just reiterated that, he sees the green light, his job is to go. So, he's not going to be sitting there checking his blind spots. That's not what they do. That's why they have all those people there looking. Exactly.
He's just sitting there revving, and they say go, and he goes.
He goes, yeah. And, I mean, he did really well not to cause a bigger accident, because he's just nicked Bottas coming out. I mean, he did wreck the floor, whatever it was, the wheel. But it could have been so much worse.
That's right. And it definitely changed the shape of the race as well. I mean, it probably, for us fans, it actually made it better, because if Bottas was up Lewis's clacker, I think they would have just held station. I doubt there would have been any team orders or anything, and they would have just cruised to a victory, because Bottas would have just played rear gunner to Hamilton, and it would have been a cruise home. So, as a fan, it probably made the race a bit more exciting, but as far as the penalty dished out, I just didn't really agree with it.
Well, I think the penalty points are harsh, but I think maybe they did the 5 seconds because they knew it would get him outside the podium, and that was a big enough penalty, especially in Monaco.
I think while we're talking about Max here, I think it also proved how much more of a mature driver he is this year, because even from the very start, if you noticed, turn 1, previous version of Max, he would have just pretty much collected Bottas in that turn 1.
I was watching his onboard for that start. He was one I picked to choose because I thought that might happen.
And he actually backed off a little bit and sensibly got around there. Yeah. And then you move on. And after this penalty, with a 5-second penalty in his mind, obviously the best thing for him to do was to get past Hamilton and just break away, because he knew he was faster with the better tyres. But he actually was sensible about it. He did have that one do-or-die move. He had a go, which is fair enough, I think. But, like I say, a previous version of Max, I think he would have been diving and weaving a lot earlier and possibly taken both of them out.
Possibly. What do you think of his attempt?
Well, I think he had to try. Yeah. And I think it was a good attempt. I think it was a racing incident. I think it was fair play from both sides. Lewis avoided it. Max tagged him a little bit. I think racing incident.
I'm not sure Hamilton thought he was going to be there when he turned in.
Oh, yeah, okay. So you didn't think he was up far enough, maybe?
Well, I just don't... I think it was he had to do it. He had to try something. And again, a racing incident. But when Hamilton turned in, I just don't think he expected the Red Bull to be there where he was on the apex. So, but everyone got to the end of the race and no one was hurt, and I think it was a fair try, really, especially at a track like Monaco.
That's right, and that's about the safest place to try such a move.
Yeah.
out of the tunnel there. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's pretty tricky as it is because it's a downhill braking zone there. But what was interesting was one of those what if moments that Brundle brought up. If Max had managed to actually keep his car fully on the track and not cut the chicane himself, what would have happened then? Because he would have made it around the corner properly, and Hamilton would have cut the corner. I mean, straight across the chicane.
He would have just kept Hamilton in front.
So
I don't think he would have been penalised for that.
Because it would have probably been Hamilton would have said, "Well, I had to avoid him." So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if he, like you said, if he did stay on the track, I don't think Hamilton would have been told to give up the spot. I just
it's
don't.
One of those things we'll never know. Just a what if.
No, it is. It's interesting. I wanted to know how far ahead Verstappen would have gotten if he had gotten a pass. Would he have cleared that 5-second gap?
It seemed like he would have quite easily, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he probably would have kept his first position then, and then that 5-second penalty probably wouldn't have looked harsh enough. Then I think.
Oh, then there would have been an uproar probably.
Yeah, but I think the stewards got lucky with that one. But yeah, Joe getting a 10-second. Now that I look at it like that, it is a bit weird. But did it affect his race at the end of the day? Probably not.
No, he had a shocker.
So 3 lights down, 2 to go. We want to talk about Sainz and the great weekend he had out. He got the fastest lap of the race as well.
No, he didn't.
Oh, I thought it was Gasly, wasn't it?
Yes. Sainz actually at the time he did.
He had it.
No, he pumped in a 115 something when Kvyat went into the pits, and
oh, that's right. Yeah.
It just made me say wow, because he actually was perfect timing. He pumped in a super lap, and as Kvyat was coming out of the pits, Sainz just managed to clear him with that super lap. So
yes,
he had a great drive this weekend. I mean, he's starting to really show something.
Well, it's showing just how well McLaren have rebounded as well, because they got a 5th. Sorry, not a 5th. Sixth, yeah. So you wouldn't have seen that last year.
No way. Like he is. Sainz seems to be what's the word? Just really settled in and very happy there at McLaren at the moment. He seems to be in a good place. The car is obviously on a massive up curve.
Yeah.
Norris played the team game. He also got points as well. So both McLarens finished in the top 10 there. I mean, we may as well just. Our next light was going to be the Hondas, so we can kind of.
Oh, he got 11th, didn't he?
No.
Norris got.
No, because Grosjean got a penalty, I think, and Norris got into 10th.
Oh, what was Grosjean penalised for?
For crossing the pit line on exit.
Oh, I do remember talk of that. Yes, can't do that.
No, I mean, it didn't really... there wasn't anyone around, but it was just sticking to the letter of the law, so they had to penalise him, which promoted Norris to 10th. So what that meant, 4 Hondas in the top 10 in the race and in qualifying.
Yeah, well, we had Verstappen 4th after his penalty. Then it was Gasly behind him. Gasly did all right. And then we got Sainz. No, sorry. That's a Renault engine. Fiat, I'm talking years ago. Fiat and Albon as well in the Toro Rosso. And then you had... Who was the other one? That's all 4, isn't it? Yeah. It is.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
So
that's top 8. You don't even need to do the top 10. That's top 8.
Right. We're thinking that the McLaren had the Honda there. We just I confused the situation there. Sorry, but
that's all right. I did it as well. But I'm like, they're called McLaren Renault, you idiot. Obviously they
did beat the factory team once again.
Oh yeah, Renault just struggling. But Daniel didn't do too bad. But
mate, he had a great qualifying.
He did, but he's always really good at Monaco.
He managed to pass Magnussen into turn 1, which he needed to do.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, I was watching the the timing board, and he just had no pace. He was like 3 seconds off the lead guys. He was running sixth, I think, at the time, but he was lapping in like 119s while Lewis and co were lapping in 116s.
There's something wrong at Renault for sure. But I remember at the start of the year you were talking about the Honda, and you didn't really think it was going to be the answer this year, especially for Red Bull.
Remember I said I'm not jumping on the bandwagon, but and that they had to actually show me something and prove to me that they were actually here with the fight, and they've definitely brought the fight. Like, I think I'm a believer now that I think they're definitely on that upwards trajectory. I mean, who would have thought 4 Hondas in the top 10 in the quali and the race? And how good were the Toro Rossos?
Yeah, they were outstanding. They scored double points. It's funny with Honda. I always hear that if they're not pushed or pressured to get something out, really quickly, they end up having a really good product. And I think the fact that they could play around with Toro Rosso the year before or whatever, and sort of learn from that, and then release it with the Red Bull. It's obviously worked for them, and Honda are on the up. So, I wonder what things would be like if Honda was still with McLaren. I know McLaren are doing well anyway, but imagine if there was a Honda engine in that McLaren.
I have thought that, and I think I might have even mentioned it before, but I think if Honda were still with McLaren, I think they'd both not be going as good as they are right now. I think that relationship just got way too toxic. I think they just needed to part ways. They obviously weren't getting along, because you can see the difference that both teams, without each other, have made such big leaps.
Yeah, that's a good point. But you got to be happy for Red Bull, at least, because it could have been Red Bull this year just being nowhere, but they've proven that it's funny, they're like at the top of the, would you call them a mid? They're a top 3 team, but they're at the bottom of the top 3, the top of the midfield. It's weird.
Yeah, because kind of like Ferrari has dragged themselves back to the midfield.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like murkied the waters there.
Yeah, because Mercedes are just clear winners here. There's no doubt about that. But
it's like we've got Mercedes at the top, clearly, Tier 1. We've got Williams, clearly, Tier 3 down the bottom. And then we've got the rest in Tier 2.
Well, it makes for some good racing, at least. You just got to forget that those two are out front.
Mate, the Albon this weekend, he blew me away. The speed he showed in that Toro Rosso through the practices, I can't remember, I think it was FP2. He finished 5th fastest. Mate, he was motoring around there this weekend. Even in the race, he had a great, solid race. I know he finished behind Kvyat by one. I think they were both, what were they, 7th and 8th or something?
Yeah. It wasn't by a lot, though.
No, he had a great weekend, I thought.
How good is Albon as just a person? Do you think? He just seems like a nice guy.
He is a breath of fresh air, isn't he?
It's weird because I don't know. He's young, isn't he? He's young, or at least he looks
20,
young.
23 or something like that. Quite old for a rookie in this day and age. But I mean, he's in his 20s.
Yeah, I just think Toro Rosso have a good combination there with Fiat and Albon, because even Daniel, he looks like you can tell that he's grown up having that year or so off with Ferrari.
Yeah, well, you know what I think of Daniel. Daniel, I can't. Is it Daniel or Daniel?
Daniel, or I don't know how you say it.
Kvyat. But yeah, I like him, and I really want him to do well.
Yeah, well, I think they've got the engine to do it, and they proved it this weekend. Canada, how do you think the Hondas will go at Canada? Similar thing, top 10 for all of them?
It's going to be interesting. It's a bit of a power circuit, so with that big, long straight, so...
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know about, like, where did what did you call it, Racing Point come? I don't know. I just don't think they're up there this year at all.
Well, they were originally expecting a new car at Spain, which didn't eventuate, and I think I heard now Germany, maybe, did I hear that their new spec car will be arriving, which is a whole new concept. So basically a spec B car, but I think they've basically got their eggs in that basket and waiting for that because they've been nowhere.
That's true. That is true. Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's our 5 lights.
That's our 5 lights for this weekend.
It is. And we had a great time in Monaco. There were a few little things that we can go over now. But don't forget, guys, if you're still listening, if you've gotten this far and you've enjoyed it, what do we make them do? 5 stars again on the...
Chuck us a rating on iTunes. Share us around. If every listener just shares us to one extra person, hey, we'll get there.
And Lights Out F1 on Facebook as well. We need the numbers to go up on that because I think I'm the only one that's liked it so far.
Yeah, I got that up and running. So we just got to get the word out there now, and podcast will be going up there. So if you like the page, you'll get a notification.
Thanks for listening in as well. Now let's go over some of the quick news that happened that we didn't talk about in the Lights Out section. Daniel Ricciardo, he had a great weekend, just all round.
Well, I kind of just mentioned it earlier. Like, he had a great quali, and I was actually quietly confident for the race that he was going to get a really good result. But once that yellow flag came out, and and Magnussen too, to be honest, I mean, they both got screwed hard with their strategy calls of changing for the tyres, and Magnussen qualified 6th and Dan was 7th, wasn't he? And then Dan passed Magnussen into turn 1. And they were on for a good race, but then they were just nowhere. And then I think what did Dan finish, 10th?
No? I was just about to double check that for you. But it wasn't a good one for Daniel. Renault, that's Hulkenberg. He came 9th.
He wasn't happy about the strategy at all after the race. I mean,
I do remember him talking about that being the downfall of the race.
Like, for him, it was all about qualifying, then it kind of just went downhill after that.
But again, like Daniel showed that he's good at that track, and I think he's gotten the most out of the Renault engine. But Renault needs some serious work, as we've said, to be competing up there.
I tell you what I did hear, Josh, during the week, and this will be very interesting at Canada because when Hulkenberg and Dan both retired at Bahrain, Cyril came out and actually admitted that Hulkenberg's engine had failed due to a conrod failure, which is like a major thing because it's the bottom end of the engine, and they hadn't released that into the media, so they spent 5 weeks actually sorting it out and redesigning it, and they introduced that spec engine with the new conrod design at Spain, but it was still turned down. But according to Cyril, now they're confident with it and they've turned it right up, and he reckons that their engine is now up with Ferrari and Mercedes power. I had to laugh reading it, but so he says that they gained like 40%. So,
well, that's a big gain, but
if
I don't know if
that's
it's
the truth, if that's the truth and it's not just Cyril Bull, then it could be very interesting if they actually have gained quite a bit in power. So we'll have to see that at Canada. So I just thought that was very interesting.
Well, that's a big call.
That's what I thought.
I think I have to wait and see with that one in Canada. So we'll see what Renault can do. Not going to be getting podiums, though. No way. Definitely not. But Ricciardo wasn't happy with the strategy and definitely got screwed over. Magnussen as well. But, just no pace at all. Just couldn't keep up with the front runners. So we'll see if those calls are right there at Renault. One interesting one as well was, you might have seen it, was Perez almost hit 2 marshals was it just after the safety car?
It was after coming out of the pits.
Right. Was that during the safety car period, though?
I'm not sure because he put out a tweet. It wasn't in any of the official feeds or anything, but he was coming out of the pits, and I haven't even heard why those marshals were running across the front of his car.
That's why I'm like, was it was it during the safety car? Because I don't know if they were picking up debris or something, but
Quite possibly, that makes sense,
spot.
yes.
A really weird spot.
But it looked very dangerous, and even Perez, he put out a statement and said, I'm glad everyone made it home safely after this race, and it was a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, you can probably Google it somewhere. But as he's coming out of the pits, there's two safety car. There's two marshals running off from the left hand side. One gets in front of him and just makes it to the wall, and the other one stops and he splits them through the middle, and it was too close to call.
It's like the old days of F1, you know, when they had no barriers and spectators are all over the track and marshals and
Or back in the days of you've seen footage of old rally races, especially with like Group B and stuff. Where that stuff's insane, man. It was sort of like that, just a rally car just splitting the crowd, and very, very lucky guys. But yeah, they're safe. They didn't get hit, and yeah, it's something that weirdly we didn't really hear much about, but you can probably go find it on the internet somewhere.
I think because the world feed missed it, so that's why it wasn't, out there.
Yeah, but
until
anyway,
Perez put it out. But one other thing I wanted to mention from the weekend was, I know we're predominantly F1 podcast here, but the Indy 500 was on, and I wasn't really going to watch it once Alonso was out of it, but I had a bit of time yesterday afternoon, so I watched it. And if anyone hasn't seen it, it's actually a great finish. In the last 13 laps, they had basically a sprint to the end, and it was Rossi, the old F1 driver for a few races, against Pagano, and they had like 5 lead changes in 13 laps, so it was a bit of a nail-biting finish.
Maybe I should go watch it, because I didn't really watch it.
But speaking of Indy, did you happen to hear Zach Brown during one of the practice sessions talking to Crofty about where it all went wrong?
I didn't hear him. I know most of the story, but what'd you hear?
Basically, he was admitting that they just bit off more than they could chew with this attempt at Indy with their own car. I mean, 2 weeks out from Indy, they still didn't have a steering wheel for the car. Apparently, when they started on this project,
crazy.
They decided that they would make their own steering wheel.
Right.
They didn't want to just buy one off the shelf, so to speak. Yep. So they decided they'd make one. And 2 weeks out, they realised, shit, we're not going to have a steering wheel. We're not going to finish this.
Why would you want to make your own? I don't get that.
But it doesn't end there. So then they go to buy one, and there's none left. So then they're scrambling around to find a freaking steering wheel for Alonso to steer the car around Indy. So it's just laughable. And then to take that even further, then obviously we know what happened with the crash with Alonso, and he didn't make it in. But with all the stress and the tension going on, the pit crew weren't sleeping. And when he came out for his final qualifying run, they actually made the most simplest kindergarten error of reading the data when they were setting the car up, that they actually took the measurements as inches, but it was supposed to be centimetres, or the other way around. So then if you see the footage, he was bottoming out massively, so he never had a chance.
Yeah, right.
That's what I said to you in the podcast last week. I said, It really is time for him to just divorce McLaren and get on with this Triple Crown with a Penske or an Andretti.
Do they have their own engines, Andretti?
No, they use Honda engines,
That's the problem. That's the problem, I think, because he's burnt so many bridges in his past. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I don't know if they're going to want to have him.
Because when you went there last year, was that the Honda engine still? It was, but then he was...
his last attempt, he was on a Honda engine, because remember it blew up.
Before, that's right.
Yeah.
But I think the winning engine in the Indy, the Penske, I think they're on Chevys. So maybe he's got to go to Penske. I don't know. But he's got to do something, because McLaren ain't going to get him that win anytime soon.
Well, it doesn't seem that way. But yeah, if he went to Penske, I think it's his best opportunity. But was it an Andretti that won this year?
No, it was a Penske.
It was a Penske? So yeah. I'd agree. I think he needs to say goodbye to McLaren and just finish it off with someone else.
I mean, kudos to Zach for stepping up and just admitting their ridiculous errors.
I think you have to, though.
But
that's
there was
good.
no hiding from it, was there?
No, definitely not. Because the media knew. Wrong colour on the car. Wrong shade
you
of
said
orange.
that last week. That's right.
There was, the steering wheel, the engine, just lots of different things.
Like I said, he just never had a chance.
No, he didn't. He definitely not this year. Maybe next year. Well, that's the end of our checkered flag section. On to the S3 Awards, Superstars, Surprises and Stinkers, where we give out points to... Is it 2 points to the superstar, 1 to the surprise, and we take 1 away from the stinker?
That's right, we do.
We do, and we'll get those updated numbers for you soon, and we'll release them so you can see where the standings are. But superstars for Monaco Grand Prix, you're going to hate this one. I've picked Hamilton.
No. I knew you would do that.
I just think it was, he still had to drive. He was being pressured by Verstappen to drive over a comfortable pace. I know he had track position at the end of the day, but I still think he managed to get those tyres to the end. He didn't have a puncture. And while it might not be the drive of his life, it was still, I think, a pretty good drive. So he's my superstar for Monaco.
Okay. My superstar has actually struggled a little bit. But I just couldn't help being impressed by Albon all weekend. So I had to give it to him.
Fair
for
enough.
A rookie, in Formula One, around Monaco, as we know, a very demanding track, I just thought it was a very mature, solid weekend.
Well, that's a fair point. So, Albon for you. That'll be his first points, I think, in the S3.
Possibly. He's got a few rookie awards. He might have got a rookie award or two, but...
we starting him off. Surprises. It's Sainz, I think. I just think he had a good weekend. I didn't expect him to be so high, so he sort of surprised me with that result.
I'm in agreement with you on that one. So I had Sainz as well. I thought it was a great drive.
Yeah, and stinkers where we take 1 point away. Now there are a few I think we could pick because there were some not very good. Like Raikkonen was nowhere that weekend. Giovinazzi wasn't really anywhere. Kubica again, he wasn't dead last though, so I guess that's an improvement.
Jeez, we didn't mention those Saubers. What a shocking weekend they had. Alphas, sorry, calling them Saubers.
Yeah, everyone knows what we're talking about, but yeah, they just weren't anywhere, were they?
No.
But I'm not going to give it to them. I'm going to give it to Leclerc.
Okay.
Just stinkers, man. I know they screwed him over in Q1, but in the race, Leclerc screwed himself over.
That's a fair point. I mean, qualifying, Ferrari totally screwed him over, and he had actually a great opportunity to shine and use it to his advantage and just show us what he can do, and unfortunately he failed at it.
He needed, because it's a long race, he needed to play the long game. He just let it get to him. And I think if that was Vettel, if we had reversed the roles, Vettel would have been playing a different game. He wouldn't have been... I think Vettel might have probably got the top 10 by the end of it.
Yeah, I think he would have got something out of it. Yeah,
where Leclerc, he got nothing, and it was his own fault. So I can't blame Ferrari for the puncture. I know he was going for it on Razkaz, but just like we said... Just flooring it on the way back. Absolute rookie error.
That really was. For me, it was Gio this weekend. He was just nowhere in practices. He even balked someone and got a 3-place grid penalty as well. Who did he balk? I think he balked...
It was one of the Hasses, wasn't it?
He balked someone, but it was a bad balk. I mean, it is hard around Monaco, but he just...
Oh, no. Because he did that at Razkaz, didn't he, on the way through?
He was just nowhere all this weekend for me. He was just... He actually... Has he done anything yet this year? I mean, he had one decent race. I think I gave him a point for it too because he actually stood out for me, but he's not really covering himself in much good light yet, is he?
No, he hasn't really stood out at all yet. Like, he's sort of... he had a good run. Where was it? Where he was defending like crazy. I forget where that was.
I think it was it China or
I think it was.
Was it Baku?
I think it was Baku.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that was one of his best races where he was just defending like 4 or 5 cars, and it was just phenomenal. But apart from that, he hasn't really been anywhere else.
I mean, I'm looking here at the Drivers' Championship, and Raikkonen's up in 10th on 13 points, and Giovinazzi's on 0 points. So
that says it all.
He needs to at least start grabbing a few tenths and ninths, 1 or 2 points here and there.
Yeah.
The car's obviously capable.
Obviously.
Who was your rookie of the weekend?
My rookie had to go to Albon.
This is going to surprise you because I gave 2 points to Albon, but then for rookie of the year, you know who else surprised me this weekend? Russell. Did you notice he finished 15th? He beat both the Saubers. He beat a Force India.
He did. That's a good point.
So that's a great result for a Williams. He smashed Kubica again.
Kubica, just...
Right? So
just give up, mate.
It's just... Did you see in the radio calls and his engineer was telling him, okay, now you need to push, and Russell is the fastest car in clear air. And then Kubica did a bit of a Raikkonen and he said, Paul, I know what I'm doing. Or he said, I know what I have to do or something. So
yeah, right.
But I should, by all rights, probably give it to Albon since I gave him the 2 points. But I really just want to give Russell something, acknowledgement for his great weekend. So
that's a good point.
I'm giving him a point for that.
Well, yeah, that's deservable, I think. It was interesting, the fastest laps. Russell was still 0.3 quicker than what Kubica managed all weekend in the race anyway. But the Williams were like... they weren't too far off the rest of the field, but almost 0.8, 0.9 at some places, so the car's still not very quick.
No, but like I said last week, let's get Jamie Chadwick in there and let's give her a go. First female into Formula One.
Yeah, why not?
That's what I'm saying. Well, why not?
Just why not? You've got nothing to lose, really.
That's exactly right. Like, what is Kubica doing for you?
Nothing really. Now, Canada. Canada's our next Grand Prix. Do we have to wait another week?
Hang on. Before we get to Canada, what about the podium prediction?
That's what I'm talking about.
Wrap up from this week.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, good point. I missed that. Okay. Well, you've got them there written down.
Yep. You picked Max as I did for the win.
Yep.
So we got nothing there. You picked Bottas for second. I picked Vettel. So I got 1 point.
Yep.
Is that it? You picked Hamilton for third. I picked Bottas for third. So I got another point. Now you see my eagerness, don't you?
yeah, I do.
You picked Vettel for fourth. I picked Hamilton. You picked Leclerc for fifth. I picked Gasly. So I got another point.
Jesus.
So I've all of a sudden made it interesting. Now you are leading 5-4 in the predictions.
Far out.
I was nowhere.
You had a great weekend.
I did, yes. Now we can move on to Canada.
So only 1 point for me. I've still got my average.
No, you got nothing in this week.
Oh, damn it.
You got nothing.
Whatever. Podium predictions for Canada. Yeah, that's where. Yeah, so do we have to wait another week?
Yeah, it's next week.
It's next week, so it's back to back.
No. I mean Friday week.
Bugger. Another week.
I count the coming Friday as this week, so I say next week.
Fair enough. All right, so we've got to wait another week. But predictions for the top 5. It's kind of hard now, but I reckon Bottas. It's going to be a Mercedes on the top.
I just wrote that down as you said it, so I'm also on Bottas for Canada.
Right. And then second, I think it's going to be Hamilton again in second.
Oh, we're back to Merc 1-2s. I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, unfortunately. I just don't think there's going to be much diversity there.
It's boring, but it's reality. I'm giving up on Ferrari doing the miracle.
Yeah. Third, now do I give it to Verstappen or do I give it to Vettel? You know what? I think I might have to go with Verstappen because I just don't trust Ferrari and their strategy at all.
I have to give it to Vettel.
Vettel?
Yep.
Now I'm gonna have to put Vettel in fourth because I just think he'll beat Leclerc, who might come fifth. So the two Ferraris, fourth and fifth for me.
Okay,
unfortunately.
You've got Vettel and Leclerc. I'm going to go Leclerc for fourth, and I'm going to put Max in for fifth.
Right.
I just think the Ferrari should have more power than the Honda down that big long straight, so they should be able to pass them. Oh, shall wait and see.
We'll wait and see. The Wall of Champions. Haven't really seen anyone get taken out by that in the last couple of years.
Yeah, not in recent times.
No. I mean, we've had some close calls, but there's always close calls. I mean, we had them in Monaco, but yeah, will there be a victim of the Wall of Champions in 2019? We're about to find out.
Will they get caught out with the wider tyres and rub it on the wall?
I mean, they said that last year, I think.
Yeah.
They were always like, "Oh, we got wider tyres now, right? It's going to be. You're going to have to adapt." But just the drivers just always seem to get around it. But anyway,
they adapt very quickly.
Now, so that's our top five. We'll see. We'll update you soon with the points for those next week as well. Now we've got some esports news coming out in the world.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've heard this, but Race Room Sector 3 Studios, they're apparently built and released some trailers of a Formula Race Room 90.
I did see that. Wasn't it just the car, or was it a new title?
No, it's a series within Race Room.
Within the Race Room, right.
Yeah, within Race Room Experience. And it's obviously with the name Formula Race Room 90, it's Formula One car based on loosely around a 90s Formula One car.
Right.
So the old Ferraris and stuff, which I used to love from back then, the Berger era.
Well, that's going to be popular.
And they're V8s, V10s and V12 engines. And they sound great on the trailers, and also Race Room is known for having great engine sounds. So
well, yeah, great. I've always heard that Race Room has the best sound engineering of any sim.
As you know, I've only recently gone on to PC sim racing, so this is going to make me download Race Room, and I want to try it out.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about it is that it's not officially licensed, so it's kind of like make-believe cars based on old Formula One cars. So they still have them red Ferrari, but they can't call it that because of
licensing.
Yeah, which I hate. So,
well, it must cost a fortune to bloody. Well, I mean, you got Codemasters that have the F1 title, so that's going to be really hard to license something like that.
Yeah, you couldn't see Formula One licensing the same thing out to two different titles, could you?
No, it just wouldn't, especially not with Race Room, the way, like, just its realism. Everyone, like every sim fan, would probably go to Race Room, honestly.
How good would that be?
Oh, it'd be great, because I hate Codemasters. I'll get to them in a second. Yeah, so that's coming with Race Room. Maybe we'll have a crack at that and have a FNO1 esports night with that when it comes out. Who knows?
Yeah, like I'm definitely keen to try it out.
Yeah, so maybe you'll see that at some point. Now you've got here iRacing. They've laser scanned the Silverstone track, and it's coming in the June build.
Yeah, well, it's official now. So they've scanned the new Silverstone track. I mean, the track is available on iRacing currently, but it's the old layout. Right. The interesting part for people that are interested is that if you already own the old Silverstone track in iRacing, you'll get a $15, $14.95 whatever credit so that you can buy the new one. So
Well, I'll just go out and buy the old one now.
yeah, so I don't know if it counts now, and apparently they go back to 24 months. So if you've bought the old Silverstone within the last 24 months, they'll give you a $14.95 credit, so you can buy the new track as well. So I thought that was very fair.
Oh, that's good of them.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, laser scanning a track's not cheap.
Yeah, so that's something for F1 fans coming into iRacing. I like that they're moving into this direction slowly but surely.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So maybe I'll go. I don't know if it's retro. We could go by the Silverstone track now, but maybe I'll find out. But that's pretty cool. F1 2019.
Yeah, did you see the new trailers?
I did actually. Didn't I post it on the Gen 1 Garage website? I think I posted one.
You did. Was it was that the full official game trailer that they released?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I know you and Codemasters are a little bit, on non-speaking terms, shall we say, at the moment.
Interestingly, people might not know this. I used to do game reviews for a website, and it wasn't 2018 because I had to buy the game in 2018. 2017, I gave him a 6 out of 10, and the editor got an email back from Codemasters saying that I was a little bit too harsh, and I never got a review copy ever again.
Okay.
So, but they haven't changed anything for years. That for 2000, this is the first year I think we're getting new podium sequences, like animations.
I get where you're coming from, but I also think I disagree a little bit. Where I think they've really stepped it up with their graphics over the last few years. Like this year's current game I think it's great, but from what I've seen from these trailers, the lighting that they've used, the realism is so much better again. I'm just speaking purely on looks. Yeah,
I can't fault them on that. It's just all the other predatory things that they do, because they've got what do they call it? They've got the customizable cars and things like having to pay for being able to customize a car and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of, not at all.
I agree with you on that note. I don't like the idea of all these microtransactions being introduced into a game. I mean, personally, I don't necessarily want to change delivery on my F1 car anyway, and it's not for online racing because obviously Formula 1 wouldn't allow that, because otherwise, when a Ferrari's out there racing, they don't want that changed. So I can't see Formula 1 agreeing to anything like that, which is why I think it's just offline. You're allowed to change your liveries, but you're saying you have to pay to be able to do that. Is that right?
I think there's skins and stuff that you might be able to use, but you have to pay to use them. So I don't know. We'll get more details as it comes out. At the moment, everything's a little bit hush-hush about it, but we'll find out soon. But I'm just, even the fact that it's there, I'm not keen on.
One thing I did read today, I don't know if you know, but
yep.
I was under the belief that F2 was just a part of this F1 2019, but I read today that it would be available later on. So I'm getting the feeling that it's not going to be on release.
Oh, that's dirty too. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell. Now, I don't know if you've heard of it, the F1 Delta Time. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast. Remember that Bitcoin web game?
Yeah, we spoke about it in last week's podcast, didn't we? Or was it in Discord? You and I were having the conversation.
I think it was just in Discord. But for those who haven't heard, F1deltatime.com, you can go to. They released this special NFT, non-fungible token or something. It's like a digital collectible that's very rare. So it was the first one that they were releasing for the game. And again, I don't really know how the game works. It's bloody odd. Do you want to know how much this thing sold for?
Oh, no. Tell me.
Just have a guess. Just a rough guess. It's a rare. It's called the 111. It's not a physical item. It's just a digital thing that has only been given value because people have given it value.
Well, my understanding or my attempt to understand what this thing is about, it's kind of like a Formula One version of Bitcoin. They're calling it a game, but I'm kind of understanding it like you buy it now for a given price, and then you just sit on it and hope that it's going to increase in price. So I just haven't wrapped my head around it. But you're saying it's a ridiculous figure.
It's not a currency, because the blockchain basically is like a ledger, and it keeps account of who's got how much money and where things go. That's all the blockchain is. It just makes sure that everyone, if they say they've got this much, that it adds up to all the other transactions that have happened in the world. It's very complicated. The fact that it's based on the blockchain doesn't really change much, but what they've done is they've released digital items that you can use to play in this game, but they've only released this one thing at the moment. But yeah, do you have a guess how much it sold for?
$5,000.
If only. It was bought by someone called Steve321. This is 21 hours ago. I think it ended.
It was an auction, right?
Yeah, it was an auction, and it sold for 396 cryptocurrency, whatever they're using, but in real money, $101,336.40.
We don't even know what it is. Wow.
No, it's just a car that will never be released again for this game. It's a digital thing. It doesn't exist in real life. And yeah.
What is this world that we live in where people just have too much money?
But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, the reason they opened up this game was to bring in more people to F1.
What?
This is out of reach of most people. I can't pay $100,000 for a car, for a game.
And if I could, would I?
I wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying.
It's possible in the future this guy might be able to make money off it because people might want to buy it, but absolutely astronomical price.
But it's also possible that in 2 years' time it could be worth zero.
Exactly. So I don't know what the shelf life for this game's going to be, but go have a look at f1deltatime.com. You'll be as confused as I am.
No.
But it sold for over $100,000.
I can't
Just
believe
incredible.
it. Wow.
I know. Incredible. Now, we've got to finish things off with the F1 Fantasy League. How'd you go this week? Was it a good week for you? Because it was a decent week for me.
No, I did not have a good week. I think I only got 132 points. I am now currently in our league running 10th. You are running 7th. You are on 818 points, and I am on 764.
Yeah, I got 150 points this week. Thankfully, I got rid of... I got rid of Vettel and put in Verstappen, which would have been a good move, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
I made a great change too. I got rid of... who did I get rid of? I can't remember who I got rid of, but I put in Gasly, who got me 31 points. But by putting in Gasly, I didn't have enough money to change my Ferrari to a Mercedes, so I got stuck with the Ferrari still. So I have to do a bit of playing around with my team. I only got 1 point for Magnussen. I got 38 for Vettel, 10 for Raikkonen, who's my turbo driver. He really cost me a lot with a shocker weekend this weekend.
Yeah,
I got 18
I
for
had
Kvyat, and
Magnussen as my
Gasly.
turbo.
Oh.
So
Well,
I
he
got
wouldn't
2
have got you
points.
much either because he was down there as well.
Yeah, I got 2 points for Magnussen instead of the 1. I should have put Sainz or Fiat. Sainz got 25 and Kvyat got 18.
If I had made Kvyat my turbo driver, I would have done all right too.
So who's leading the league still? Is it still one of those?
The Boom is leading on 988. Catchable, you're up there. You're on 818 in 7th. Second place, very close, is East Coast Auto.
Yeah, that's Bethany. I know who that is. She's
on
done it right.
She's on 974. So there's only 14 points between first and second. It's very tight up there. And then Ricky Rogers 09 is in third place with 894 points. So that's the top 3.
So we're beating. I think we've got mostly Australians and Kiwis here, and we're all being beaten by 2 Americans.
Oh, that's right. Third place is an Aussie, is he? Yeah.
Yeah. And like America's not really a place that F1's big in, but anyway.
Goes
they
to
obviously
show you,
know their F1 a little bit better.
Liberty Media's working.
Well, clearly. And then, so where are you? Down in 10th. You finish out the top 10. 764. No, am I reading the wrong one?
No, that's right.
764. Okay. Oh, well, got some work to do. Yeah, I might get rid of, I don't know if I'll get rid of anyone, but I might change my turbo this week to someone like Sainz, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, that's been our Monaco wrap-up and our Canada predictions, guys. So, as we keep saying, we're trying to remember to remind you guys to share us around, give us a rating, get involved, give us some comments, jump onto Lights Out F1 Facebook page. Yep. Nice and simple. And that's us for this week.
It is. Don't forget, I'm at demo1garage.com. Ours is at FNL1 Esports. Lights at F1 on the Facebook. Share, like, subscribe, follow. I don't know what else you can do, but don't forget, guys, to race hard on the edge. And Aussie,
push it to the limit and keep it on track. See you all next time.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.